morning, everyone, as you all filter in. We'll give just a couple minutes to allow all of our attendees to join us. I was so excited to see the sun this morning after kind of a dreary day yesterday. It looks like it may be cold, but still pretty today. All right, wait about another 30 seconds. People will continue to join us, but I do want to welcome everyone this morning. Happy Wednesday, more than halfway through February, which is hard to believe, but we're pleased to have you join us for our State of the City this morning. I remember very well being in person for this event last year. It was one of the last few we were able to get in before transitioning to our new home, right? Everybody's very comfortable on Zoom at this point in our lives. So we're very excited to hear the mayor's speech this morning and to hear your questions. So a number of you submitted them in advance when you registered, which is great. I have those ready to go, but there's also the Q&A feature. So we would encourage you, if you have questions that you didn't submit ahead of time or that come up throughout the course of this morning, please submit them that way and I will present them to the mayor. But to start us off, we're very grateful for the support that we receive from our members in the form of sponsorship. And so for today's State of the City, we have Eversource as our presenting sponsor and Enterprise Bank as our sustaining sponsor. And we're so grateful to them, right? The Chamber wouldn't be able to do the programs that we do and support businesses in the community the way that we do without the generosity from all of our members. So thank you to both of them. We do have joining us this morning, Donna Gamache, who's the Director of Governmental Affairs with Eversource. And Donna, I'm going to bring you into the room here and allow you to say a few words this morning as our presenting sponsor.
Sorry for that. It looked like I was cut out for a minute. I lost my, I cut out for a moment there. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened to my system. So my apologies, but thank you, Kate. It's an honor for Eversource once again to serve as the presenting sponsor of the Greater Nashua Chamber's State of the City address featuring Mayor Donchess. Like you, we're looking forward to hearing the mayor speak about the very latest developments in New Hampshire's second largest city, which city leaders proudly call New Hampshire's economic engine. Even though Nashua has long been identified as the state's manufacturing hub, the mayor has vision that goes beyond that. And we're pleased to be supporting the mayor's downtown redevelopment by relocating and rebuilding our Mill Yard substation. And this will allow more of the riverfront to be redeveloped while the downtown and Mill Yard are provided with a state-of-the-art power source, which will last for another 50 years. There's so much on the plate, so many ideas that the mayor has. So we're really anxious to hear what he has to share today. So with that, I'm pleased to introduce Mayor Donchess, our 56th mayor, and who now marks his second term overseeing the well-being of this great city. So we look forward to hearing the latest on the state of the city. Mayor Donchess.
Thank you, Kate, and thank you, Donna. And I want to welcome everyone who is joining us for Nashua's first virtual State of the City. I spoke to the Board of Aldermen last night, but as tradition has it, I'm with the Chamber this morning and we're doing it virtually this year. Well, the pandemic made 2020 a tough year, much different and much more difficult than anyone could have expected when the year began. It has consumed the energy and attention of our country, of our state, and our community. Many Nashua families have suffered, 76 with the tragic loss of a loved one. We mourn with those families. I think of Andre Pelletier, who worked for our Public Works Department and was one of our own. Andre was taken by COVID-19 just last month. Andre plowed our streets and paved our streets for 46 years. His sense of humor was appreciated by everyone. He was a Vietnam vet. His was a life cut short by the virus. Our thoughts and prayers are with Andre's family. In the face of our shared hardships, I am proud of the way Nashua has responded to the crisis. We have moved our city forward despite the virus. In fighting the pandemic, we have followed the science and worked with medical and public health experts on a fact-based approach. We enacted an early mask ordinance based upon what the science quickly established, that wearing masks reduces the spread of the virus. 2020 was a year of trials, but it brought out the best in Nashuans. Our nurses and doctors have cared for the stricken and provided comfort to families. People across the city, from first responders to grocery workers, have responded. Nashuans have answered the call in many ways. Our public health department and public health nurses, under the leadership of Director Bobby Bagley and Chief Public Health Nurse Kim Bernard, have worked nonstop to contain the spread of COVID-19 and to keep us safe. 7 days a week, our nurses have helped patients who have tested positive to regain their health and recover. Through our weekly clinics, our public health department has tested thousands of people. And now our nurses are vaccinating hundreds of our city's most vulnerable residents. Emergency Management Director Justin Cates and his staff have been helping to direct the city's response from the beginning. Volunteers like school nurse Robin Abedili and federal judge Joe LaPlante have worked to trace the contacts of patients with COVID-19. That's an effective tool in limiting the spread of the virus. Mike Appleberg in United Way, Camille Pattison and Nashua Transit, our school departments, food service workers, and many volunteers have delivered 90,000 meals to kids in need. We all want to protect our family, our friends, and our community. We all want to open our economy and return to normal. But the medical researchers have been clear. And if we fail to follow their lead, there will be even worse consequences for our families and our economy. We all have a personal responsibility to slow the spread of the virus and eliminate the pandemic as soon as possible. Therefore, we need to keep wearing our masks, practicing social distancing, and avoiding large gatherings. That's how we can open our economy sooner rather than later. Thank you to the 2,800 city employees who've been working hard despite police officers, DPW workers, City Hall staff. And a personal thank you to Cheryl Lindner and the staff in the mayor's office for helping across the board during the pandemic. Very early on, we acted to help our small businesses, the lifeblood of our community. We assembled a $1.2 million COVID Impact Fund, enabling us to extend loans and grants and to help save over 50 small businesses and nonprofits in our city. Restaurants, cafes, retailers, barbershops, yoga studios, and more. We soon will be able to add another $1.2 million in federal money to this COVID Impact Fund so that we can help save more small businesses still being hurt by the pandemic. We also acted quickly to save our restaurants and the jobs of wait persons, bartenders, and chefs in their time of crisis. Despite concerns about traffic, we expanded outdoor dining on Main Street by closing one northbound and one southbound lane. Restaurants had been closed by the governor's emergency orders on March 15th. So to capture most of the season for our restaurants, we needed to do a lot of things quickly. Everybody pitched in. Economic Development Director Tim Cummings worked with Public Works Director Lisa Foto, City Engineer Dan Hudson, and small business owners to develop a plan. Community Development Director Sarah Marchant and the Board of Aldermen worked to pass the necessary legislation. By early May, we were ready to go. So we moved in the barriers and crossed our fingers. The results were better than anyone expected. Nashuans started flocking to our restaurants to eat outdoors, and no real traffic congestion resulted. Michael Buckley, the owner of Surf and MT's Local, told us, "You may have saved many of us." The expanded outdoor dining not only saved small businesses, but it changed the vibe of downtown. More people, more activity, more life. And when the warmer weather returns, I want to continue expanded outdoor dining this year and every year. Our small businesses, we know, have sacrificed a lot. And I will always remember what this pandemic has cost them and cost the employees who have gone without. While we have overcome some of the challenges COVID-19 has brought, there will be more in the future. In the months ahead, we need to carefully monitor the learning loss that our students have suffered as a result of remote learning. Our resources are limited, but we need to devote every dollar we can to making up any loss in learning levels. Better skills mean a better life. We want all of our young people to look forward to a meaningful career and a rewarding family life. And to do so, they need to have the foundation of a strong education. I want to take this moment to give a shout out to our teachers. Our teachers have had to work harder to teach kids via the internet. They have come up with new creative ways of engaging their students. I know it can be a struggle for some students and for the teachers themselves, but our school staff has stepped up to encourage online learning. The state of New Hampshire should be vaccinating our teachers right now in order to get our classrooms open as soon as possible. I have called upon the governor to move teachers up in priority so that we can get everyone back in school. I'm glad that this week, the school department began the process of bringing more students back to the classroom. And as we look to the eventual return of all of our students, we can look forward to new and improved facilities for our middle schoolers. We are in the midst of a major improvement of our middle school buildings, renovating Fairgrounds and Pennachuck, and starting on plans to replace the aging Elm Street School with a new school and campus on Buck Meadow Road. When these projects are done, Nashua will have the most state-of-the-art schools in New Hampshire, and they all will be generating more electricity than they use through solar power, and all will have advanced classroom technology. I want to thank Dr. Jamal Mosley for his service to Nashua, and I want to congratulate Dr. Garth McKinney on being selected as interim superintendent. With his knowledge of our schools, he will provide the continuity our district needs over the coming months. It is important to discuss the serious financial challenges that the city is facing right now. We have a perfect storm of 4 major financial challenges: the pandemic, rising healthcare costs, the state's decision to raise Nashua's pension costs by $4.4 million, and a cut in school aid in the amount of $7.4 million. At exactly the worst time, the state of New Hampshire has slammed us with nearly $12 million in downshifted costs. Every time the state does something like this, your property taxes go up. The costs of the state downshifting this time amount to a 5.5% property tax increase forced upon the hardworking taxpayers of Nashua, all without any involvement by us here in Nashua. Now, we are working with our legislative delegation and with other cities to help our taxpayers. I have testified before House and Senate committees over the past weeks for and against a number of bills that would affect Nashua's budget. But the results of the legislative process are uncertain. But I'm thankful to our delegation and to the other mayors around New Hampshire for all of their efforts. When the state of New Hampshire originally lured Nashua and the other New Hampshire cities and towns into the state pension system, they promised to pay 35% of our pension costs. The state broke that promise almost a decade ago. And so far, this has cost Nashua taxpayers a cumulative total of $74 million. Here's another example of the state raising your property taxes. For the past 10 years, the state has frozen the amount coming to cities and towns from the rooms and meals tax. The state hasn't paid to the communities the full 40% of the revenues that was promised when the rooms and meals tax was passed. This has cost Nashua taxpayers a total of another $34 million. While these financial challenges are coming from the state, we are also faced with local pressures in our own budget. 2 years ago, in the State of the City address in 2019, I raised a red flag about rising healthcare costs. Over the past 2 years, healthcare costs have risen dramatically, up over 20%, more than $6 million per year. But we are taking aggressive steps to cut the rate of increase. We have developed a reformed HMO plan designed for city HMO healthcare benefits, which would result in significant savings for the city if adopted for all city employees. So far, this reformed healthcare plan has been agreed to by a number of employee unions. However, to most effectively reduce the rate of increase in healthcare costs, we need the support of the Board of Aldermen. The reformed HMO plan must be for every group of city employees. No exceptions, no exclusions. We are also encouraging employees to elect medical savings plans and to use smart shoppers, both of which save money for the employee and for the city. By working together, the Board of Aldermen and I have accomplished a lot. Our response to the pandemic, full day kindergarten for all Nashua students, our ongoing paving plan of action, which has already paved 100 miles of the city's streets, the adoption and the accomplishment of greener Nashua energy goals, the successful addition of over 500 units of downtown housing, an expanded outdoor dining, many other things. However, over the past couple of years, there has been one significant disagreement between the Board of Aldermen and myself, a difference over the controlling of costs. During this period of rapidly rising healthcare costs, I have advocated that we set priorities. I have said what the facts make clear. While facing major financial challenges, the city cannot make long-term commitments that exceed the cost of living year after year without raising taxes more than our taxpayers can afford. As a result, I have opposed 3 collective bargaining agreements and vetoed 2. In January of this year, I vetoed a proposed contract for firefighters that granted 15.5% raises. At the end of 2019, I flagged a police supervisor's contract, which included 11 and 12% raises, and I vetoed a contract for civilians in the police department, which granted 11% raises. The Board of Aldermen passed all 3 contracts and voted to override both of my vetoes. Now, independent commissions conduct fire and police negotiations. But for the other negotiations over which the city's finance team and I have had more control, in public works, in City Hall, in the library, we have successfully negotiated collective bargaining agreements which are fair to both employees and to taxpayers. Our firefighters and police work hard for our citizens, and I appreciate their contributions and the sacrifices they make for our city. All of our employees should be paid fairly. However, these increases in personnel costs are not sustainable. Now it appears that the hard choice between higher taxes and service cuts may be upon us. So for the fiscal year 2022 budget, starting this one, the city's finance team projects that a tax increase of at least 7% will be needed to make up for the state's $11.8 million downshift and to pay for the budget we expect to get from the fire, police, and other departments. The hardworking taxpayers of Nashua cannot afford a 7% tax increase. Now, the job of the mayor and the Board of Aldermen is to achieve a balance between the need of Nashuans for quality services and a tax rate that is affordable. I will be submitting my fiscal year 2022 budget in early May. Because we've been hit by so much, and because many families here in Nashua are struggling during the pandemic, I have issued budget guidelines which would hold most departments to 0% increases over the current year's budget. I hope the Board of Aldermen, our independent commissions, will help with the city's tax rate this year. Despite the pandemic, we are moving Nashua forward. Our paving plan of action has made dramatic improvement in the condition of what were just a few years ago Nashua's crumbling streets. We have paved 100 miles, 1/3 of the city's streets, including major streets like Amherst, Broad, Somerset Parkway, Main Dunstable Road, and Kinsley Street, as well as many miles of neighborhood streets. We have also crack sealed additional 70 miles. Crack sealing is much cheaper than paving at about 10% of the cost per mile, but it can preserve a street for up to 5 more years. In addition to a stronger infrastructure, we are building a stronger downtown economy. This will benefit everyone because properties in the central business district pay far more in taxes than they require in services. And these tax revenues help pay for schools and police and fire protection in all of our neighborhoods. We've added 500 units of downtown housing with more to come. The headquarters of Penachuk is back home in downtown Nashua in the Walnut Street Oval. We're doing the groundwork necessary to create a downtown dog park. Construction is starting on the Performing Arts Center. These steps are the underpinnings of an even stronger downtown economic resurgence. The Performing Arts Center that you will see at the corner of Main and Pearl Streets next year will benefit everyone. The project will attract private investment. It will build our tax base and increase the city's tax revenues. It will bring tens of thousands of people downtown for entertainment and to patronize our shops and our restaurants. Even before it is opened, the Performing Arts Center has already been successful in attracting private dollars. We are working with housing developer Peter Floats to build 150 units of housing on School Street. This housing means more than $20 million in downtown investment and will add $400,000 per year in tax revenue. The builder, who has already worked successfully in Manchester, became interested in Nashua because the city was investing in the Performing Arts Center. Nelson Marcato, the entrepreneur owner of the Made Men Barbershop on West Pearl Street, is opening a new business because of the Performing Arts Center. In a previously empty storefront across the street from the barbershop, this is an empanada restaurant called Empanelli's. As we see additional private investment in the future, the Performing Arts Center will pay for itself. Working together with Nashua's delegation, we are making progress on commuter rail for Nashua. The state of New Hampshire has hired engineering firm AECOM to perform the required final planning phase of the Capital Corridor Rail project. This means that there could be a plan for commuter rail put forward by 2023. We are also working to take greater advantage of the Nashua River. When you think about it, we are a river city. Our city was founded because of the water power provided by the river, and the Nashua River is our city's main namesake. Our plan for the riverfront started with a riverfront master plan and a tax increment financing district used to capture the new value being generated around the river, like from the new Lofts 34 housing. Next is lighting on the Cotton Transfer Bridge coming this spring, with lighting along the Riverwalk coming soon thereafter. Elevated walkways, like the one around Peddler's Daughter, are being designed for the other three corners of the Main Street Bridge, along with boat docking and an expanded and improved Renaissance Park. Just as we're reimagining our riverfront, we're always looking for innovative ways to improve city government and to better serve the residents of Nashua. I am personally committed to an innovative culture at City Hall, and you are already receiving the benefits. The Public Works Department is helping to offset the increased costs of recycling by making an arrangement with Casella, our recycling contractor. The city is getting $15 a ton from Casella to take crushed glass, which we use to cover as a cover material for the landfill. This innovation generates $100,000 per year. In the winter, Public Works has also begun brining, which is applying salt water to city streets before the storms. This does a better job of keeping streets clear during snowstorms, and rather than applying rock salt after the storm begins, and it saves money. At City Hall, the assessing and IT departments have put new assessing, search, and analysis tools on the city's website and have put thousands of documents online. Nashua has the most open, accountable, and transparent assessing department in New Hampshire. Thank you to Administrative Services Director Kim Kleiner and new Chief Assessor Rick Vincent for these improvements. Nashua is also doing its part in fighting global warming. Our city energy manager, Doria Brown, has stepped up our green plan of action. LED streetlights, solar panels installed on the Lake Street Fire Station, on the Transit Garage, on Conway Arena, and on 3 schools, Dr. Crisp, Fairgrounds, and Penachuk. Converting our 2 high schools to LED lighting, hybrid buses. These projects are reducing the city's energy use and saving money. Since 2016, we have cut our greenhouse gas emissions from public works vehicles and from transit buses by 1,660 tons of carbon per year. That's down 40%. We're also working on a host of other energy-saving projects. As always, no matter how much we move our city forward, there will always be more work to do. We need more affordable housing. Housing demand is strong, and rents and the values of Nashua homes have risen dramatically in the last few years. But there are still people in our community who are struggling to pay the rent or to pay the mortgage. We've worked with a private developer to build 150 units of workforce housing on Marshall Street. And we are working with the Nashua Housing Authority to redevelop the Bronstein Apartments to include 200 affordable units. The Housing Authority has been clear about one thing from the beginning. Although a temporary move will be required, all Bronstein residents will be guaranteed to be able to return to Bronstein in a new and a better apartment. Alongside this need for more housing, we are seeing a rise in homelessness across New Hampshire. Here in Nashua, Mike Renke and the Nashua Soup Kitchen and Shelter are working with the St. Patrick's Parish to convert the former St. Pat's School on Spring Street into housing for homeless individuals and families. Another great project is Infant Jesus and Family Promise working together to add transitional housing for families in need in the former Infant Jesus School on Crown Street. Family Promise is an established nonprofit that has had remarkable success in providing the support that families need to get themselves back on their feet. Well, this past year has been difficult for everyone, but we will recover even stronger by continuing to work together in the ways that Nashuans always have. We are all neighbors and friends. We want our families to build meaningful lives with the health and safety we need and the individual freedom and local control that we deserve. And we want our young people to have the opportunities they need to build careers and families. If you have ideas about how we can make Nashua an even better place to live, you can get involved in Imagine Nashua, the citizen-led effort to create an updated master plan for our city. We have a lot of work to do. Overcoming the pandemic, improving education, building a stronger economy, fostering the downtown resurgence, and creating a greener Nashua. Let's get to it. God bless the great city of Nashua, and thank you to the Chamber for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Mayor. I mean, certainly, right, a very difficult year. It impacted everybody in different ways, but across the board, but really nice to hear the positive efforts. And I've been so impressed in my time in Nashua with how the community comes together. And, you know, as you said, friends and family, and it's just it's a very unique community and very special. And so thank you for sharing all of that with us, all of your plans and all of the accomplishments. We do have some questions, and I would encourage those in the audience, if you have a question, to use the Q&A feature in Zoom to send it our way. To start with, you mentioned briefly the Performing Arts Center and the benefits it will bring to downtown, but someone had asked ahead of time, could you give us an update on sort of where the progress is at with that?
Well, first, I want to thank Rich Lannon and Deb Novotny for helping to raise the private money that was necessary to authorize the project. So where we are now is the project has been fully authorized. There's some initial work going on right now, but demolition of the front section of the former Alex Shoes, that's the Main Street, Pearl Street corner building, that's one that was built in the 60s or 50s maybe, it will begin in March, and construction will begin in earnest at that time. And Harvey Construction is the construction manager, and we expect completion sometime in the late summer of 2022.
Excellent. And so a related question, someone was interested in hearing plans for the Mill Yard and whether or not any traffic flow will change with the Performing Arts Center.
Well, one thing we have to, well, that's sort of two questions, plan for the Mill Yard and will traffic flow change? As Donna mentioned at the beginning, we are working with Eversource to relocate a power station that they have next to the former NIMCO building. The NIMCO building, which is now fully owned by the city as of like a couple of weeks ago, the NIMCO building has been in litigation for years because the former owner of the building still retained, you know, a few years ago, ownership of the equipment, or arguably of the equipment, and of a small piece of land underneath. So there had to be an eviction procedure. There had to be a a taking and sheriff sale of the equipment. And then we had to take the land via using a debt that he owed the city to take the land underneath the building. Now we finally own the whole thing. As of sometime this month, like a week ago, there was a sheriff sale of this little piece of land underneath part of the building. So now we own the whole thing. So our plan will be to probably put out an RFP, request for a proposal, regarding the development of that parcel. But we also are working on a master plan of the kind of a planning effort on that section of the Mill Yard that runs right along the river there, south from NIMCO, and we will of course be looking at the parcel that will be freed up as a result of our project with Eversource. One project that I would love to see go forward, but there are some economic difficulties with it, which is that Clock Tower Place acquired the Picker building a couple years ago, and what is hoping to redevelop that into housing. And the parking solution for that is difficult because there's not much land around the area. So that is one we'd like to move forward. And of course, we are as I already mentioned, the Riverfront Master Plan and the Riverfront Project revitalization is all taking place basically right in the middle of the Mill Yard. In terms of the traffic, We are looking at reversing the traffic on Pearl Street from east to west to east. But there would be other changes required to accommodate for that. And it is very difficult time now to make a change like that because the conditions are so uncertain. So what we've got is COVID, which has reduced traffic. We've also got the outdoor dining coming in and out. So we've restricted the traffic on Main Street to 2 lanes during the summertime. We're going to hope, our plans are to make that a permanent thing. So it is hard to know, what traffic conditions we're dealing with and what changes would have to accompany a West Pearl Street reversal. There are some other technical traffic issues that, we could talk about for a while. There are a lot of changes. To change that, there might be other changes. I mean, do you change it all the way to change Pearl just to Main Street so that traffic comes in facing each other? Or do you change it then all the way, the whole length of Pearl, and then you have to change Temple? If we change Temple back the other way, it would, I think, work to the disadvantage of 30 Temple Street, which is one of our major downtown office buildings. RJ Finley has done a very good job there of repopulating that building. So we want that building to be successful. So, there are a lot of things to consider. So I think we're deciding we want to do another season of outdoor dining and kind of decide what to do.
It's a bit like a Rubik's Cube, right? You think you
Yeah,
got one side and then you have to change all the others to get it back to.
Yeah.
So you also talked about rail, and someone had asked a question about whether or not you see a continuing need for rail service from Nashua to Lowell with work from home being so prevalent.
Well, I do, because I think that the long-term, commuter rail and that type of access into Boston is just very important. And so I think commuter rail, yes, definitely still has a part to play. But we will, of course, in the final planning phase, we'll learn a lot more about exactly what it would cost and how it could be financed.
All right, and then, so could you address why, so this is related to the legislature, so House Bill 315 could be bad for Nashua businesses when on its face it seems to speed up the ability for community aggregation to take place?
Well, we've been discussing this with the legislative committee and with Eversource. The concept of community aggregation is something the legislature authorized last session 2 years ago. And what that does is it allows a community to purchase power on behalf of the customers in that community. And there are several issues that we are trying to resolve to make this a reality. I mean, we're calling this community power, at least from Nashua's point of view. Now we're working with a number of other communities: Cheshire County, Rockingham County, Hanover, Lebanon, and some other smaller places in a sort of a coalition. But the issues seem to be, number one, will the communities be allowed to purchase power at a different time during the year, a different window than when Eversource does its power purchasing? We think that works to the advantage of customers because it creates more competition, and because it allows us more latitude in trying to, if we want to, if the community wants to acquire additional, green power. Number two, there's some issues around getting customer data. I think Eversource is concerned about some privacy issues, but the city, anybody engaging in community power needs some information regarding the current customers. Now, as I talked to Eversource about it, I mean, they're primarily, I think, although they know a lot more about it than me, they're primarily a distribution company. They don't generate power, so they're buying power as well. So we would, of course, continue to pay Eversource for any community power project. Would continue to pay them for the use of the lines, the distribution function. So back to 315, we see 315 as creating obstacles to community power. And we seemed like we are almost through the discussions of rulemaking at the PUC. There've been a lot of informal discussions there, and that 315 has stopped all that and would, be more of an obstacle than a help. But I think there are ways that we could work on that, or on the rules, to accommodate the concerns of Eversource and of the community power advocates.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So that is all that we have for questions. So we appreciate, again, the opportunity to be here with you today. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. We have recorded today, so it'll be available for folks who maybe weren't able to join us, although we did a terrific crowd this morning. So thanks to all of you for joining us. Thanks again to Eversource for being the presenting sponsor, and Enterprise Bank for being our sustaining sponsor. Hopefully by next year, Mayor, we'll be together in person. But thank you again. Thank you for making this work for us this morning, and everyone have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kate.